Hello and welcome to this session on licensing in iVend Retail 6.5. My name is Manish and I'll be your host for this webinar. So at the outset, thank you so much for taking time out to attend this session. And I would say, again, thank you very much for an overwhelming response. We are just about going to start. We're waiting. Let's wait for another 5-7 minutes. For everybody else to join in, and then we can start after that. So while we wait for everyone, just a few housekeeping items, as I always suggest. Just want to know whether I am audible or not, and you may like to press the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel to confirm whether I'm audible enough or not. Yes, I think. Thank you, John. Thank you, Rogelio. Thank you, Monica. Gracias, as they say. Let's give another about 30 more seconds for everybody else to join in, and then we can start. So today's session is in my opinion, a fairly important one. And for a couple of reasons. One, the whole concept of licensing, in 6.5. And in fact, the licensing actually started in 6. The change in licensing was brought about in 6.4 or 2. Technically, that's the release. One release before the one which is currently released, 6.5. But we'll talk about that. I am still giving another 30 odd seconds for people to kind of join in, settle down, test their mics before I really start. So other thing I wanted to talk to mention before we really start is it's the sensitivity of the topic and it's the importance of the topic. I would much rather appreciate if this session is as interactive as it possibly can get. You can ask questions using the chat window, or you can ask questions using the questions window on your GoToWebinar. You can always raise a hand using the hand icon, and I can unmute the line. You can ask the question. I will try my best to answer as many questions as I possibly can during the course, but let's try and make it as interactive as it possibly can get. So with that said, I think let's start. The topics that I want to cover today are very simple. We just want to talk about all the licensed components in iVend 6.5. I mean, they have been there for a while. I mean, not just introduced in 6.5, but they have been there in the earlier releases as well. But now that the discussion is on licensing in iVend Retail 6.5, I would much rather talk about all the components that we have, give a brief description of what each and every component does, the different types of licensing models that we have for the modules. We touch upon a very important topic of licensing of back office users of Management Console. So we'll talk about how the licensing, how we incorporated the different suggestions on back office user licensing when we released iVend 6.4 R2. I will also briefly touch upon what are the prerequisites and what's the process of upgrading from earlier versions of earlier versions of iVend to either R2 or preferably to 6.5, and the different enhancements in the product, typically around the licensing, the license entitlement that a retailer can see directly from the Management Console. So that's the broad agenda. I won't take a lot of time. I would say another 40 minutes at the max, but I would much rather have this more interactive. As I said, so with that said, broadly, the licensed components in iVend Retail could be categorized into 3 broad categories. I mean, though you see 4 boxes here, but essentially imagine these to be just 3 of them. So 3 types of licensing, I would say. Certain set of modules are licensed in a perpetual and a subscription mode. So I would be using on-premise and perpetual interchangeably. So the licensing of some of the modules is both perpetual as well as subscription. Some of the modules are only subscription based, and some of the other modules are typically SAP add-ons are only on perpetual licensing. Broad three categories, I would say: on-premise, perpetual and subscription, only subscription, and only perpetual model of licensing. So these are broad categories. iVend terminal point of sale or mobile point of sale are on not only on perpetual and subscription, but since 6.4 release 2, 6.4 R2 version that we had released, since then we have made these licenses interchangeable. Earlier what used to happen was you could either license mobile point of sale or terminal point of sale, and you could never interchange them. So now what we have done is we've extended this benefit to the retailers by allowing interchangeably, you could interchange licenses between terminal point of sale and mobile point of sale. That's one very important thing that one has to keep in mind. We have introduced again for a while now a licensed component called iVend Store Server. So the store server, which earlier used to be included in the olden times, is now a licensed component, and what is included along with this is one back office user. iVend Enterprise is obviously included, doesn't have a cost component to it, and there is one user, one back office user for iVend Enterprise as well. You could, as a retailer, could buy additional back office user licenses. iVend e-commerce is licensed both on perpetual as well as subscription. iVend e-commerce is licensed for every domain or every domain. So let's say iVendecommerce.com is, if that is the domain, then that domain would be licensed. In iVend e-commerce 1.6 that we will be launching very shortly, we would also have the concept of multiple sites. So you could have apparel.ivendecommerce.com, footwear.ivendecommerce.com, let's say electronics.ivendecommerce.com. So all these subdomains would also be licensed components. And that's a completely different discussion. We'll talk about that as we come closer to the release of 1.6, which again is not too far away in time. So these are on-premise and perpetual. Similarly, the ERP connectors are also available both on perpetual licensing as well as subscription licensing. So SAP IS Retail connector, SAP ECC6 ABAP connector, SAP Business One SQL integration, SAP Business One HANA integration, Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2013, and very shortly Dynamics NAV 2016 integration are also available both on perpetual and subscription licensing. Then there are certain modules which are available only on subscription licensing. These are iVend forecasting, and this forecasting works only when iVend is used in the unplugged mode. So iVend forecasting, iVend web viewers, web viewer licenses. So web viewer license is utilized when a retailer wants to access dashboards, and typically iVend dashboards on their handheld devices or mobile devices. So you have web viewer licenses. You have iVend handheld, which is essentially an inventory management extension typically used in very large stores for warehousing functions or in the distribution center, where you have a Motorola device which runs almost all inventory functions like good receipts, stock transfer requests, stock transfer receipts, inventory counting, good receipts against a purchase order, etc., all done on a handheld device. So that is also on a subscription basis. iVend Loyalty is again a subscription-based pricing per loyalty account per year. And exactly similar is iVend Loyalty Customer Portal, which iVend Loyalty Customer Portal is allows the consumers of a particular retailer to go online to a particular portal, which could be a retailer's portal, where they can see their transaction history. They could see graphical representation of how they've earned their points and how they've redeemed their points. They could see the transaction history. They could see the receipts, etc. And then, of course, we have iVend Passes, which is a cloud-based application allowing retailer to dish out digital passes, as in gift card coupons and loyalty cards, through emails digitally on Android as well as iOS iPhones. And then finally, we have SAP Business One Addons, which are available only on perpetual licensing, which is iTomatrix for SQL, iTomatrix 5-user pack for SQL, iMatrix HANA, iMatrix 5-user pack for HANA, iCharge 5-user pack, and an additional gateway. So these are, broadly speaking, very hurriedly, the complete licensing licensed components. I just want to spend another 5-7 minutes trying to explain how are these licensed. So these are licensed, like for example, iVend point of sale, be it terminal or mobile, are interchangeable licenses. Then iVend store server includes one back office user. Additional back office users can also be purchased for the store or the head office, but only one back office user is included for the enterprise. iVend e-commerce is, as I said, per store or per site per company database. The IS retail connector, the SAP IS retail connector for iVend retail is for every PI instance. SAP ECC 6.0 ABAP adapter connector is for every server. SQL integration, all business one related are per company databases. Similarly for Dynamics 2013 and coming very soon 2016 are on per company databases. So subscription based modules, for example, iVend forecasting is per company database per year. iVend web viewer licenses are per user per year. iVend handheld is per handheld device. iVend loyalty, now that's a very interesting thing here. Whenever a retailer licenses iVend retail for the first time, 1,000 loyalty cards are included in the package. So essentially means 1,000 loyalty cards are for free. From there on, if you have to license, then you have 10,000 loyalty accounts per year, or 100,000 loyalty accounts per year, or 1,000,000 loyalty accounts per year. And you can always add additional loyalty accounts in batches of 1,000 each. Exactly same licensing model for customer portal as iVend loyalty. And iVend passes are licensed per notification per month. So that means is 10,000 notifications a month, 50,000 notifications a month, 100,000 notifications a month, and 1,000,000 notifications a month. So notifications can be understood to be, for example, emails that are sent out from by the retailer using iVend passes as the platform. So how many emails per month would you be sending would determine the pricing for iVend passes. And this is pretty simple and straight. The SAP Business One Addons are all per company databases. So before I move forward, I just want to pause here and ask if somebody would have any questions before I finally move on to the next topic of interchangeability of management console or back office user licenses. Jerry has a question. Let me unmute. Yes, Gerardo, go ahead. You'll have to unmute yourself on your control panel, but go ahead. I've unmuted. Yes.
Hello, Manish. Good morning. Good morning.
Hola, good morning.
Just one question around the store manager console. Is there any news around that in terms of how it can be interchangeable between different stores or type of user or something like that?
Yes, that's a topic I'm covering immediately after this. I thought I'll just hear, discussion around, let's say, for example, loyalty or passes or customer portal licenses and things like that. So
that's okay. Thank you.
All right. So moving on is something that we introduced in the 6.4 R2 licenses, interchangeability of licenses, essentially back office user licenses. So there were a set of retailers who wanted us to have back office user license as device, the management console license as device based. Some of them wanted us to have user based. So what we have done is we have come up with a licensing model where we allow the retailer to decide whether they want to have device-based licensing or they want to have user-based licensing. What that essentially means is retailer will decide if the licenses are to be allocated by device or by users. You could have a mix of both. You could have user-based and device-based. and the allocation can also be interchanged at any point in time. So if the licensing is, for example, user-based, that means the user can log in from any device, from any location with this, and will be allowed to keep the same user ID and password. So one user, multiple devices. In a device-based license, there are multiple users on the same device. You can log in from any licensed device and can keep the same user ID and password. So essentially, ability to mix and match both kind of licenses. So the way this works is, any management console user is allowed to log onto the device in a device-based license, because it's the device is licensed. The machine on which management console as an application is running is a licensed component. Anybody can use any. You could have multiple users, and what we have done is we have created a new screen in management console for you to, as a retailer, to configure. So this, whenever you upgrade from an older version to, let's say, 6.4 series, 6.4 R2, whenever you upgrade, and once the upgrade is through, whenever the application is launched for the first time, you would be presented at the enterprise level, would be presented with the management console profile selection screen corresponding to that particular site ID. Let me try and explain this on the product itself. Retail configuration, management console. So pick up this one. So what is the way I have done it is, if my licensing is device based, so this is my device, okay, the name of the ID of which is this, the description is this, the site ID is this, the machine ID, etc. And I'm saying I'm actively using a license, but this one is not a device-based license. If you look at this, okay, this one is not a device-based license. I am using a user-based licensing model. But this is the place where you would specify that this device has a license, okay, and once you specify that license, the license will get consumed. So that's how it typically works when it is a device-based licensing. In a user-based licensing, the management console user can log on to any iVend management console device across the entire application landscape. And the allocation of licenses is done in a particular place in iVend, in the management console, in the security user setting, where we say that this user has a license. Let me try and show that to you. So I go to authorization, I go to security user, and I pick up a user. And in this case, mine is a user-based license. So it says this particular user has a license. So I am allocating licenses based on users in this particular installation of iVend Retail 6.5. So that's as far as interchangeability of licenses are concerned on a perpetual model. So all that I just told you about is when you have a perpetual licensing, essentially an on-premise deployment, you have the option as a retailer to specify a certain set of devices are device-based and a certain set of users are user-based license, and you can always mix and match. So that's how the two work. For cloud and for hosted customers, it is all user-based, and predictably so. So there is no device-based licensing in a cloud environment. It's all user-based licensing. So as a user, you connect to the hosted enterprise or to the stores on the cloud. So before I move on to how the upgrade process takes place, I again want to take a small pause and open the forum for any kind of questions if you may have before I move on to the next topic of how does the upgrade really work. I have a question from Jerry. I will read it out. If you wish to interchange, say, a user-based or a device-based license, is there a special procedure that you have to follow, that is sending an email to licenses or send a new activation key? No, you don't have to do that. You can, as a retailer, you can do that in the management console. In fact, there is a screen on the management console which allows you to see your license entitlement, and I will show that to you. Then I have a question. Yeah, that was Rogelio as who's asking the question. If you wish to interchange a user-based for a device-based license, is there a special procedure? No, you just have to go to Management Console and just interchange the licenses. Okay. Any other question that we may have? You can raise a hand. I can unmute. It'll be easier for everyone, certainly to me, to try and answer the question. All right. In that case, let's move on to the last but one topic of upgrading an older version of iVend, let's say 6.2.x series iVend to a 6.4R2 or 6.5. The licensing model remains the same, be it 6.4R2 or 6.5. So the way it works is, if you're upgrading from a 6 to X series, you would first need to have a license from the licensing team, because the licensing model is very different in 6.4R2 as compared to what it used to be earlier. So that's the first step. Then what you'll also have to do is ensure that your CTX license manager is installed on the same machine which is running the SQL server for the iVend Enterprise. And this is a mandatory step, again, because I'm interchanging devices and users. You then activate the license. You upgrade 6 to X to 6.4R2 or 6.5, depending upon where you want to upgrade. Our recommendation is that if you are upgrading from a dated version, you would be better off to upgrade directly to a 6.5 rather than first to a 6.4 and then to 6.5, though it doesn't really matter. So you could upgrade using an installer or through automatic over-the-air upgrades. Once you're done with this, you launch iVend Management Console. The application expects the customer ID. Customer ID is something which is provided to you by the licensing team along with the license that you get. So you would already have the customer ID when you get the new licenses from the licensing team. And once the application upgrades, all the registered Management Console will be allocated as device-based licenses. And these license allocation, the license allocation can be changed from the Management Console at the enterprise level. So the care that one has to take is to ensure that, one, you have the licenses, and second, your license manager is installed on the same machine on which the SQL server is for the iVend Enterprise is running. Other than that, it's pretty simple and straight. And when you upgrade from 6.4X series to 6.4R2 or 6.5, then it's very simple and straight. You just, you don't have to get new licenses because you're already on a new licensing regime. You just have to run the installer, either on the installer or upgrade to automatic over-the-air upgrades, and it's going to be very simple and straight. And once you are upgraded, you obviously have the choice, should you want to change from device to user and vice versa. As I said, this is just an optional step. So these are the process for upgrading from an older version to a newer version. I will again take a pause here and open the forum for any questions. So you can please go ahead and ask me if you have any. No questions as of now, which is good or bad. Let me move on to the last part of the session, where I'm going to talk about the entitlement of licenses. How do you get to see your license entitlement? So for every installation, for every license that you have, earlier we had to debug or decode the licensing file. Now it is available as one of the menu options in iVend Management Console. Let me try and show this to you on the product itself. So I go to Management Console, IT Administration, and there's a menu called License Information. So this is what the system tells me. What are my entitled features? Okay, what is my entitlement count, and what is my entitlement balance? So my license is going to expire in 232 days. I have entitlement of 10 stores. I've consumed 9. I'm entitled for 1 store. I have consumed that. I had no more stores. 20 point of sale. I've consumed 16. Interesting. 10 user licenses. I've consumed 8, and so on and so forth. So I have pretty much consumed my entire, should I say, license entitlement. But this is one place where you can see your license entitlement. So that I would say brings me to the end of the session. And but before I let everybody go, just want to have quick round of Q&A session. Please go ahead and ask me if you have any questions and queries. You can always write an email to any of us, and we will be more than willing to respond. But if you have any questions, please go ahead. This session is being recorded, and for the benefit of my Spanish-speaking friends, we will have a Spanish version, I think, on Thursday, if I'm not wrong, Rogelio, if you can just kindly confirm. I think it's on coming Thursday that we would have another session in Spanish. Yes, that's correct. Thank you. So I think with that, I would like to bring the session to an end. And Jerry has a question. The Spanish version will be partner facing. Yes, of course, these are partner and customer facing sessions. So there is no discrimination whether it's partner or customer facing. John asked me the question, does the cost structure remain the same? Well, I did not talk about the prices and the cost per se, because that's a topic of a discussion that is much rather handled and managed by the regional channel sales directors. So they'll be better off to answer the question. But in terms of the licensing, if your question refers to the licensing, then the licensing remains the same irrespective of the region. Other than that, as far as the costs are concerned, which is, as they say, it's beyond my pay grade. I would much rather have James in the United States and Jerry in Latin America field those questions and answer them. And John, for your benefit, Nigel or Richard would be better off to answer any costing or pricing related questions. So that's, I think, largely it for now. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your participation. These sessions are held every Tuesday. Okay, so every Tuesday, one for Eastern Hemisphere and one for the Western Hemisphere, and hence you would notice that it says East and West. So there is one session which happens at noon India time every Tuesday, and there is a repeat of the session happens every Tuesday 8:30 p.m. India time, which is 10 a.m. Central. So, and then a same session is held in Spanish on Thursdays. So, and that is happening till the time I'm not able to pick up Spanish, learn Spanish as a language, and Jerry has been trying very hard to teach me Spanish. So till the time that happens, my Spanish team, my Latin American team will take the sessions. So as I said, every Tuesday, one in the afternoon India time for my Eastern Hemisphere and one in the evening India time for the Western Hemisphere, these sessions. So the next session, if I'm not wrong, is on reports and dashboards. That's going to be another very interesting session. So till that time, till next week, have a great evening ahead and have a great day ahead, and we'll meet soon. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.